Thank you for joining. I'm Kurtis Minder. I'm the CEO of GroupSense and the author of Cyber Recon. If you're here, you probably clicked on a QR code in the book. I'm going to stop chastising people for clicking on the QR codes. I did put them there, despite all of the lessons we teach. So thank you for joining. Today, I've asked Jax Scott to join us. Probably many of you already know who Jax is. So she's quite well known in the cyber industry. It's an honor to have you here. Thanks, Jax, for coming. I want to tell you why I picked Jax. You know, in the book, I'm profiling people who are pioneers in certain respects of the industry or making a really big impact on the industry. And Jax is like punching above her weight class on all of those things in several different ways. Anyways, from teaching young people how to get into the industry, you have a book on that. And so many different ways. And your podcasts are really informative, and you get some of the biggest like names in cybersecurity on those podcasts. I've actually been on there. I feel humbled every time you invite me, and I'm humbled now because you're so good at it, and I don't really know what I'm doing. So, but thank you, Jax, for coming. And can you tell us a little bit about you that I haven't already said?
Well, first off, thanks for having me and profiling me. Completely honored. When you sent the email, I was like taken back. I think this is a really amazing thing that you're doing. You're a legend in the field yourself, and just taking a moment to highlight others. I mean, that speaks volumes of like you and your character. So really happy to be here.
Thank you.
So a little bit about me, high level, broke into the space around 2018 in technology through the military. From there, I segued into the special operations, which landed me from basically doing IT to then now doing intelligence, because the special forces community is all about leveraging all of your skill sets, not just what your job title is in the military. And that was a great segue for me to go into cyber threat intel. And I started doing that, and I eventually got into consulting, and then landed where I'm at today, which is I am a senior executive at the largest learning company in the world, and I
Wow.
lead the business information security team and helping protect this global footprint. It is amazing, it's rewarding, also challenging. So that's me in a very brief nutshell.
Yep. Well, and I love how it goes from, you know, serving your country to education and supporting not just through your employer, but also you've got your podcasts and you published stuff on educating people in cybersecurity. Can you talk a little bit about how those came about, the podcasts and stuff?
Yeah, I started the podcast. When did I start that? I think 2020, 2021. Not two cyber chicks, but actually, I think I still had two cyber chicks, which is still going strong, season 6 into season 7
Wow.
soon. But I had Outpost Gray, and I had like played around with podcasting, but there's something different when you're actually on the camera like this and recording. And I
Right.
did it because I had really gotten into this journey in 2019, 2020 to conquer my public speaking. I had all this trauma around it. Long story, real short. I decided I'm going to step out and I'm going to start a YouTube podcast, is what essentially is what we call it now. Nowadays, podcast is video. And it was terrifying, but I did it because I had a mentor that reached out to me and told me, "Hey, you have a presence. You really need to lean into this." And he gave me a challenge. I accepted it, and the rest is history. Like
That's
I don't
amazing.
really do a lot on the YouTube anymore because I'm just so overwhelmed. I keep two cyber chicks going, but Outpost Gray is still growing surprisingly. I think there's like over 8,000 subs over there.
Wow.
And that I love podcasting. What I love about it most is being able to have guests like you on the show, to be able to have even a big enough platform, like you said, having big names come on. Like we're at a place now that people come to us and
Right.
people pay to be on our show, which is so humbling because Eric and I do it not for the money, but more for the community. So
Right.
I started it. So it's ironic. I started it for myself to better myself. And now I do it to highlight other amazing people and really dive deep into conversations, pull back the layer basically on conversations in tech and
Do you remember
leadership.
when we were at a conference and we did like a quick, like at the table, and you were just crossing, was it 3,000? I think.
No, I think it was barely 1,000
Oh my
when I at
gosh, that is
RSA, when I was at
incredible.
RSA.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah.
I think it was, I get conferences so mixed up now,
Yeah,
but
I know.
but I remember that moment and you were like, we're so
Yeah.
close. And I was like calling people and be like, hey, I'm
Yeah.
on this,
Yeah.
subscribe, you know,
Yeah, I was so close to 1,000. I know. I
and
was
now it's
so close
eight.
to 1,000. I know. And I'm like over 8,000 now. And I'm like, Yeah, it just goes to show you 1% better a day. You just have to keep making those small
Yeah,
progressions
yeah,
and be okay that you may not be able to post every day. Like that's, I think, another thing in this space too, is we can be really hard on ourselves when we're not at that peak all the time. But
right.
that's the nature of this industry. Yeah.
I definitely feel that. And actually, that's a good
Yeah.
segue. I mean, you could probably, like, watching this could probably like weave in an idea of what you're sort of about and what your mission's about. But can you just not let us prescribe that and tell us kind of what you're about? I also, follow you on social and on Instagram and things like that. And I love your posts about sort of like how to keep mentally healthy while doing these very stressful
Mhm.
jobs and things like that. But I don't want to give it away. I'll let you kind of explain.
Yeah. I think there's a holistic, like a whole body and mind and soul approach when you're doing things. And we've heard this saying for many years. There's books about it, about balance. There's a book on the 5S, finance, family, friends, all these other things. And it's all about like this circular balance. And I did that for a really long time. And then I started to realize about a year ago or so, balance isn't impossible, in my opinion,
Hmm.
but flow creates harmony. And what flow I've realized is you accept the situation you're in and you understand that everything's going to ebb and flow, that there's going to be times that I'm going to be able to post every single day, or that I'm going to be able to do a live stream every single week, or whatever those
Right.
parameters are. But then there's going to be times too that I'm not going to be able to do any of that. And you know what? Nothing's going to implode. And I think that's the hardest thing for higher achievers like us to realize,
Right.
is that pulling back doesn't mean that the momentum stops. It may slow down in certain areas,
Right.
but you just shift the focus to another area. So for me, it's teaching my team how to prioritize their time, because it's all the way down to how do you prioritize? How do you say yes? How do you say no? How do you create healthy boundaries? And then how do you find joy and peace in the situation you're in right now? I know that's kind of like I forget the saying for it, where people always like, you're supposed to find joy in the journey. Sometimes the
Right.
journey sucks, and that's okay too.
Indeed.
But that's part of like just accepting and be like, this sucks right now, but this too will end. And like, I'm all for being just a realist
Right.
and I think optimistic too, but being a realist about situations, I think is very important. And just realizing that flow is where I want to stay and be versus trying to be in balance. And
Right.
that balance to me thinks of like, the visual of like there's a cartoon balancing a whole bunch of plates
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
the time and just trying not to make one fall. That's what balance is to me. And that's not that like is
That's not
horrible. I don't want to
sustainable,
be in
right? You're
balance.
fighting
No.
gravity.
Right.
Yeah,
Just be in
exactly.
flow. Like let the plate fall. You know
Right.
what? It's going to be okay. We're going to figure
Right.
it out if the plate falls,
I
and we
love
move
that.
on and we just adjust and carry on. Yeah.
I love that. And also, it reminds me, like, sometimes one of my hobbies is like sort of dual sport, long distance adventure motorcycle stuff, which some
Yeah.
people think is cliche nowadays, but I've been doing it like my whole life. And so there are moments where you're like, bike is upside down in a ditch in Utah in the middle of nowhere, and you're like, and then it starts to rain, and like it's not even supposed to rain in
Yeah.
Utah or whatever. And then you're like, why is this
Yes.
happening to
Yes.
me? And I always tell myself, adventures are never fun while you're having them.
Yeah.
But then afterwards, when you survive
Yeah.
it, and you do ultimately, and it makes a great story, and it also builds character. It's like, I got through that. I took a deep breath.
Yeah.
I paid attention to the issue, and I got through that. So yeah, I appreciate the idea about flow. I think tying it back to the cybersecurity industry is interesting, because one of the reasons I think we overwork ourselves is because we have this like infinite adversary. And it's also one of the only industries where you have that, where you have like an actual enemy trying to cause harm. And so there's a natural like human, I want to prevent this, right? And like, I don't want to sleep until I feel comfortable. And you never feel comfortable, right? Because there's so much to fight. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that is part of it, 100%. I also think that there is so many intelligent people in this space, and depending on where you work, I feel like everybody's just trying to be better than they were yesterday, and that can also burn us out. I'm competitive. I feel like there's a lot of competitive people, very neurodivergent people, so like wicked smart, but like hyper focused as well.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of different factors that play into that, specifically in like the cybersecurity space that I've witnessed. Like my team in particular, they don't want to say no. They want to say, yes, we'll handle this. And the next thing you know, they're on back-to-back meetings until
Yeah.
10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And that's part of it too, because cybersecurity doesn't ever sleep. This is
Right.
not, in a lot of industries, I think some industries, but like think about it. If you were an attorney, you or CPA, you might get busy during the tax season, but there's a lull.
Right.
Cybersecurity, we don't have an off season. There is no
No.
off season here.
No.
Yeah.
Wow. And I'll defer from saying anything that's immediately political right now
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
this. But uh, people can just look at the time and date of this post and
Yeah.
see maybe what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
Well, and obviously, Cyber Recon, the book really profiles how the cyber intelligence industry works. You were kind of born out of cyber intelligence, so you understand. We actually get a preview of this and what's coming often before it shows up. And sometimes we feel like we're like shouting from the rooftops, like, "Look
Yeah.
out!" and not being
True.
taken seriously. And when I started writing the book, one of the things I realized was that very few people realize that this is a thing, that there are private companies that do that for a living, that basically a form of private espionage on the would-be
Mm.
adversaries, to kind of get a preview of what's coming. And I'm sure when you joined, were you doing cyber intelligence in the military?
I did it in the military. That's how I got the job in the civilian sector.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, so you
I
you
didn't
were
even
on the
know
front
really what
lines
I
of
was
this. Yeah.
doing. Yeah, Curtis, like it literally just kind of fell in my lap when I was on a deployment and I had the intel background. And then I realized, wow, I'm really good at like OSINT and scraping for information. And then I was really good about putting the story together. And then I was like, oh, this is a job. Like this is a thing you can do.
It's
Because
kind of a
cyber
cool
threat
job.
intel
Yeah.
was still, it's such a cool job. To be
Right.
honest with you, it's probably one of the things that I honestly, I love what I do, but that was such an amazing experience. And that's like the best job to have in cybersecurity, my opinion.
I still, obviously I'm the CEO of a company, but I still geek out about this stuff on my own. When somebody's like, yeah, there's this bad guy, but we can't figure out who he is, it's like, I'm going to get his blood type. Wait a minute. And like, it's so fun. It's
Yes,
so
it
fun,
is.
especially when you're good at it.
Yeah.
We kind of know what you're up to. What are you doing next? What's next for you?
Gosh. Oh, man. Well, I've got a book in the works and I want to share too much about it,
Okay.
but I have a book in the works right now and it'll be in cybersecurity, but it
Ooh,
might not be what think people are thinking. So that's definitely next. But I think outside of that, because I'm really limited on time and I say no a lot, my focus in 2025 is really on my people. I just
that's
had two
awesome.
meetings with my peer and my CISO just about personnel and just making the team even better and more effective. And
Right.
it takes time. It takes a good year to really develop team members and that's going to be a really big focus this year for me is just to make sure I take care of my people and develop them and make sure they're in the right roles
And that they
because we're
learn the
changing culture.
principles and that they learn the principles of flow, right?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I think sometimes when I talk, they're like, what is she? But they're getting woo woo with me. They're getting it.
Right.
They're on
You're gonna
board.
start sending them like company branded incense sticks and stuff.
My God. They wouldn't be surprised, actually. They'd probably be like, oh, this is Jax. That's cool.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for making time. I know you're super busy, and I get to get you back at least once. Now, I think I've been on your thing, maybe two cyber chicks and one outpost gray, maybe three
Oh yeah, I
times.
think I've had you on at least three, if not four.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
you've always been so gracious. Seriously,
Oh,
Curtis. Always thank you. Oh, and RSA. So yeah, I think it's been four.
oh
Like
my
you're
gosh.
always with I'm like, hey, can I record you on that? Yep, done. So anytime you need me,
Well,
any
obviously it's an
seriously.
honor and it's not unselfish because you have quite a following, apparently 8,000 subscribers. That's amazing. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for making time. And for everyone else,
Absolutely.
if you came here from some other means not by clicking on the QR code or maybe some internet link that you also clicked on, the book is Cyber Recon and go check it out. Thank you so much.